Yo, what's good? My name is Reginald, aka the Art Star, aka Mr. Straight Fire, and this is Unabashedly Reggie's reaction, review, breakdown, analysis to Eminem's Untouchable.
White boy, you're untouchable.
Seems like the average lifespan of a white man is more than black neighborhoods who ain't acclimated to him, like that's the way to do it. With some biases that plague our society, which makes our anxiety levels raised every time we see a devil's face.
Before we start, remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, if you're on Facebook, go ahead and like my page. All links can be found below. And please visit EminemBase.com, with whom I have a partnership, so you can get all your latest Eminem news. And finally, if you can, please go over to patreon.com/unabashedlyreggie to show me your support. And by doing so, you exclusively get the full breakdown of this video, including the complete highlighted rhyme sheet. Untouchable was released as a single to Eminem's Revival album on December 8th, 2017. Speaking of which, check out my Revival review. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10, so go see how I arrived at that score. Untouchable was produced by Mr. Porter, Emil Haney, Mark Batson, and Eminem himself. This song, which contains a sample from Earache My Eye by Cheech and Chong, is one of Eminem's most politically charged songs. This song is about police brutality and the mistreatment of African Americans throughout history. The title of this song, as well as the hook, is a reference to the notion of white privilege, where it is easier for a white person in America to succeed or get away with something. The first portion of the song is from the perspective of a white person, specifically a white cop, until the end of the second verse. At that point, it's the only time in a song where Eminem is speaking from his own point of view. After that, the beat changes to a more conventional boom bap, hip hop instrumental, and it is from the perspective of a black man. Now, in my opinion of this song, I think this song is amazing, but there's a caveat. It is amazing if you don't consider the first part of the song. I'll be honest, when I first heard it, my initial reaction was, alright, another rock rap song where Eminem raps in an annoying voice similar to Berserk, so I was disappointed. But then when the beat started to change, I rewinded that part so many times because the beat was so amazing and the performance was as well. I swear, it's impossible when that part comes in not to bop your head like this, man. Man, great drum, I love it. And for me, as a black Eminem fan, it was very special to hear Eminem talk from the perspective of a black person. And to anyone that says that Eminem tried to jump on a bandwagon or capitalize on the current racial tensions in America, you're absolutely wrong. Eminem has always been very supportive of the black community, from charity work to the staff he hires, which are mostly black. This was just the first time he put it out so explicitly on a record. Moreover, Eminem almost never releases music when he doesn't have a project coming up, so that's why he didn't rap about it sooner. Back to the first part, it kind of grew on me, especially the hook, which is pretty catchy, I'll admit. I think the first part is necessary to the song. I almost feel that Eminem did that part as a ploy to catch the attention of white non-hip-hop fans and then flip the song on them so they can hear about the life from a black person's point of view, something they might not be aware of. And the intro, which is also very different from the rest of the track in terms of sound, is a great way to set up what is coming up. Hands up, officer, don't shoot. That's the perspective of a black person, and also a slogan of the Black Lives Matters movement. Then pull your pants up, promise you won't loop. That would be a white cop's point of view, and also was a parody slogan used by people against the movement in question. We may never understand each other, it's no use, we ain't never gonna grasp what each other goes through. That's both perspective at the same time by using the we, of course. So yeah, that's one of Eminem's standout song on the Revival album, in my opinion. Now for the breakdown, I will focus on the second half of the song, but I wanted to mention parts of the first section where he references cases of police brutality, such as, pull your pants up, we about to roll up and throw your ass in the van cuffed. That's a reference to Freddie Gray, who died from injuries he suffered while being transported in a van while being cuffed. A lot of people think that this rough ride was on purpose. Pistols drew right at you, we're delighted to unload it in your back, then walk and lay that taser on the side of you. That's the case of the fatal 2015 shooting of African-American Walter Scott. While unarmed, he was shot in the back by a cop, and the officer put a taser next to his body to make it seem as if Scott had stolen it. But in quite a coincidence, the police officer in question was sentenced to 20 years in prison the day Untouchable was released. Like I mentioned earlier, the second part of the song is Eminem rapping from the perspective of a less fortunate black person living in America. In terms of writing, there are many different rhyming patterns in this verse. For the most part, he switches it up every 4 to 6 bars. As a matter of fact, the rhyming changes every time he brings up a new topic or idea. As usual, I will highlight the rhymes and give my explanation or my interpretation of the bar. Since this is a long verse, I've broken it down into 3 parts. And if you want to see the whole verse highlighted as well as all 3 parts in their entirety, please head over to patreon.com/unabashedlyreggie. Let's go. The first pattern is a 3-syllable one, like price scanner or the sky spanner. Seems like the average lifespan of a white man is more than twice than a black lifespan. Wonder sometimes if it has a price scanner. I feel like checking out on Life Canada Escape. As he often does, he breaks down words and sentences in order to fit the rhyming scheme he has going on. The way he broke down escape to only rhyme the first letter of it is pretty brilliant, in my opinion, right? So about the lifespan, it's a known fact that people in poor areas often don't live as long as people in richer areas. And Eminem is writing from the perspective of a black man in the poor area. Although he is probably exaggerating a little, he feels that because of that, the lifespan of a black person is significantly shorter than a white person's. And later on in the verse, he explains why there are a lot of black people living in poor areas. And here we have a nice metaphor with the price scanner and checking out. In a store where the register is, there's a price scanner, right? And when it's time for you to pay, you check out at the cash register. But when he says checking out on life, he's hinting at suicide, since he feels there's no way out of this struggle. And again, when I say he, it's always the black male that Eminem portrays in that verse. Escape the circumstance, I'd rather hear him say die N-word than die N-word, ninja, now it's better disguised banter. The N-word is a South African rap group that is a sort of a parody group because the members are taking personas. Now, I never heard of that group until I made my research when Untouchable came out. But my understanding is that they have been criticized for their appropriation of black culture and have done some videos that could be interpreted as making fun of black people, actually. Interestingly, they were signed to Interscope Records for a short period of time in 2010, same label as Eminem. Also, the male of this group is called Ninja, which is a word sometimes used instead of the N-word. Now, notice that I pronounced the group's name differently than how Eminem did. I said the N-word, which is Afrikaans for the answer. So Eminem said die N-word to highlight that their name is a subliminal way of saying die N-word, which is extremely racist. So for me, the message of that line is that he would rather have people be openly racist in his face instead of pretending to be down with his culture, but really see him as less than. Nice subtle rhyming here with McDonald's and daddle. Plus alliteration with H's. Higher, so how can we have higher standards? Now, as you'll see, the next bar will introduce a new pattern as well as a different subject. As Dallas overshadows the battles for Black Lives Matter, we fight back with valiance, but acts like datter. Great assonance here with the ass sounds, where they come in almost every 2 syllables. And notice how, with the way he says the words, he makes Dallas rhymes with shadows, battle, and violence. Black eyes on the movement, which makes Black Lives Matter at cops and cops matter. That's why it's at a stalemate, can't arrive at a compromise. This whole part is about the event of July 7th, 2016, where 5 cops were killed at the end of a Black Lives Movement protest. But they were killed by a man operating by himself to avenge the death of black men who were killed by police officers. For those who don't live in America, the Black Lives Matter movement is a group that is engaging, for the most part, in peaceful protests against police brutality towards African Americans. But because of that lone wolf act, some members of the media has labeled BLM as a terrorist group. So that's why Eminem is saying that this event put a black eye on the movement, meaning that it added negativity on it. Also, notice that I've highlighted cops in pink, and guess what else is the color pink? Pigs. Relax, I know, it's just a stupid joke. Moving on. Compromise, so it's black ops. I wonder if we hire more black cops, the crap stops. Here are homophones with black ops and black cops. The block is our backyard, officers, not the crack spot called the attack dogs off of us. You always act all pissed off at us at a traffic stop. And bad cops fuck it up for the good cops and man, stop. Notice those 5-syllable rhymes. Backyards, officers, attack dogs off of us, act all pissed off at us. Man, stop sending white cops into black neighborhoods where ain't acclimated to them like that's the way to do it. Man, the flow he took when he delivered that last line, I just really loved it. If you saw my Revival review, I wanted Eminem to sound more like he did on the March Mathers LP or the Eminem Show, and he does there in my opinion. Plus, that 6-syllable rhyme, acclimated to him, that's the way to do it. So nice. Who's seen some videos of rappers waving guns and know nobody black, so they act afraid of us, and that's racism. The fear that a black face gives them, a subconscious racist. Wait, why are the black neighborhoods? The next lines are among the best delivery in the whole songs. As he often does, he amps it up, and you'll notice he uses words that sound very similar to put emphasis on what he's saying. Because America segregated us, designated us to an area, separated us. Great subtle rhyme here with America and an area. Section 8 us when we tear it up, the only time attention's paid to us, and education sucks. Section 8 is a reference to the Section 8 of the Housing Act of 1937. Simply put, it's a program that allows private landlords to rent apartments and homes to people with low income at a lower price, and the government guarantees to make up for that difference by giving money to the landlords. As a person renting, you need a voucher to be able to participate in that program, but the problem that happened is that some owners refuse to rent to people with vouchers, sometimes discriminating against minorities. So a lot of places that accepted that voucher, or still do, are in poor neighborhoods. Therefore, that's how minorities became separated from the rest, and that's why you will have poor neighborhoods dominated by blacks or even Latinos. Again, it creates this cycle that he's talking about. Now, the next lines delivery is impeccable. He drops them in chunks of 6 syllables, which contains a 5-syllable rhyme. And every day's another Friday great for us. A levee break or fuzz. That's dope. A levee is a structure that prevents flooding. So Eminem is referring to floods that have happened in predominantly black areas, like Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and there's also the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927, which affected a lot of African Americans, and is the subject of the Led Zeppelin song called When the Levee Breaks. Fun fact, the drums from the Kim song are actually a sample from that Led Zeppelin song. You should check it out. And fuzz is a slang for cops. All in all, Eminem is listing the many obstacles that African Americans have faced or are facing. Okay, so before we continue, again, a reminder to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you can, go support me on patreon.com/unabashedlyreggie. One of the perks of going there is to get the full breakdown video of this song, which includes all 3 sections in their entirety. Let's continue. Why is it they treat us like dry lint? Dry lint goes with fuzz from the previous line. Fuzz being particles or fibers from clothing, just like lint is. And in your dryer, you have that filter that traps all the lint that you have to clean every once in a while. So not only is Eminem making a wordplay here, but he's saying that the cops, the fuzz, treat black people like dry lint, meaning something with no value that needs to be disposed of. We just want a safe environment for our kids, but can't escape the sirens. Don't take a scientist to see our violent natures lies in the poverty that we face, or the crime rates the highest in the lowest classes. It's like a razor wire fence, so we're trapped in these racial biases. As you can see, a new pattern is introduced, and what I like is the internal rhyming of lowest classes and so we're trapped in. Also, what he's trying to point out is the fact that crimes that are committed by African Americans has nothing to do with race, but more with poverty. So it's more of a class thing than a race thing. These racial biases that plague our society, which makes our anxiety level raise every time we see a devil's face. The structure of these lines is interesting because they don't rhyme with each other, but they have internal rhymes. Plague our society, makes our anxiety raise every time we see, and level raise with devil's face. Now, the devil is a reference to a white person. Throughout history, at times, the white man has been referred to as the devil. Personally, I do not condone that saying, but it's just something that's been said, so that's why I have to point it out and explain the meaning of it. Single mother struggling through substance abuse while people with nothing to lose shoot each other for shoes. I love the writing on that line. Not only he changes his voice and tone to deliver it, but the way it is written in a very structured way that harkens back to his old writing style and delivery. And yes, call me a nostalgic, I don't care. On top of that, you have a nice alliteration with the sh sound. Shoot each other for shoes. It's pretty cool. Your Republican views pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, whether the boots. I don't know. That's also, I don't know. The way he said that, it was so cool. So like I said, I broke it down into 3 parts. So on to the final section of that verse. Let's go. Because no one oversees these cops and all we see is them beat charges. Again, that's ironic, since the cop who killed Walter Scott was sentenced to prison when this song was released. We done seen him beat Rodney King unconscious and got off, so we don't need all your crooked police officers' peace offerings. Just keep marching till we reach Congress. That scheme around Steve Rogers is another great example of how Eminem finds ways to rhyme words that normally wouldn't rhyme. It's all about how he pronunciates those words. Steve Rogers, these cops in, King Unconscious, police officers, peace offerings, keep marching, reach Congress, and even before that, you had read comics. Let's continue. But they're gonna say you're trying to take an irrational stance if you try to slander the flag, but somebody has to be the sacrificial lamb, so they call it a Kaepernick tantrum if you don't stand for the national anthem. Once again here, just like he did in his Trump freestyle, The Storm, at the 2017 BT Hip Hop Award, Eminem shows his support for Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick is an NFL football player who decided not to stand during the American national anthem during the games to denounce police brutality towards blacks and other minorities. Unfortunately, his message was lost and it became more about disrespecting the American flag, the army, and being anti-patriotic more than the actual issue. We raise it, you better praise it, or you'll be made to feel like a traitor will treat you like Rodney Dangerfield. The hit he's talking about here is the American flag, and Rodney Dangerfield is a legendary American stand-up comedian who often made jokes about getting no respect from people. So that line could be translated into, if you don't praise the flag, you will be treated with no respect. Kind of like Kaepernick. Home of the brave is still Racistville. Home of the brave is one of the nicknames of the United States of America. So this whole nation feels like a plantation field. Plantation field is of course a reference to slavery, where slaves were forced to work on plantations. In a country that claims that its foundation was based on United States ideals that had its native killed, got you singing the Star Spangled Spiel. The Star Spangled is the name of the American national anthem. To a piece of cloth, that would be the American flag, that represents the land of the free that made people slaves to build. Again, another reference to slavery. It's a well-known fact that the United States is a country that was able to grow the way it did because of slavery. Land of the free is another nickname for the United States of America. So Eminem wanted to point out how of an oxymoron that is. An oxymoron is when you combine words that contradict themselves. In this case, you have land of the free and slaves. What a powerful verse, an impactful verse by Marshall Mathers. All right, that's it, folks. This has been my review, analysis, breakdown of Eminem's Untouchable. And again, if you haven't seen it, go check out my Revival review. And please like this video, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what are your favorite songs from the Revival album or other Eminem songs you would like me to break down. So until next time, folks, this has been Unabashedly Reggie. Thanks. It's been real.